how have the relationships in the course evolved? So it's 1 year later compared to the video that I will link in the description here up above and then at the end in the end cards. And the video was basically evaluating how the relationships were doing at that point in time, and like how I felt about the relationships in the course. And yeah, now it's a year later, so yeah, just to compare how have the relationships evolved and so on. And yeah, a big thing is that several people have left the course, right? So the guy I was with the most of the time that I talk about in the previous video, he has been let go. He didn't have like a decent enough average to continue with the course and so on, or like I don't know, there were issues, so he couldn't continue. Then before him, two other people, and after him, one more. So yeah, that obviously changes the dynamics and changes who is available to have a relationship with, one could say, and so on. Then yeah, that means kind of that group wise, there are just the two people that I mentioned in the other video who were kind of on their own, right? Those two people remain kind of on their own, but as a whole, because we are less, the group has maybe tightened a little bit. And yeah, then that means that there's also like the rest of us from the previous group, and then another part of a different group that we got merged with, another group of Spanish people who at that time, at that point in time, were just the other class or another class that wasn't even in our building and so on. Then they got put in our building, and then we got merged with one part of them who stayed here in Munich, and the other part of that group went to some other place. And yeah, basically, also one thing that I mentioned in the other video is that one of these two people who were kind of going on their own ways was doing so because, well, kind of they always have been kind of independent and so on, but uh, also at the very beginning of the course, and I think the reason why I made the video is that there was kind of an incident where one of them apparently had exaggerated, like he had exaggerated and lied and reported him to, kind of snitched on him to like the superiors and so on, and the other people kind of sided, except the guy he was with most of the time, sided with the guy who had been falsely accused of, I don't know, being a bully or whatever, right? But it turned out that he kind of, even though maybe in that specific context uh, did lie a little bit or exaggerated, like to the extent to which he was a bully or so on, he was kind of spiritually closer to the truth, you could say. That's how what I have written, because the guy who got accused of that later on, uh, even though at that time, at that point in time, a lot of people kind of sided to him, a lot of us sided to him. Then a couple of those left, and yeah, well, I was kind of always on my own a little bit, but some people left, and I got to see how he was kind of closer, and he had like a lot of messy relationships and weird ways of acting on those relationships and so on. So that definitely was something interesting to see. And yeah, so he kind of turned out, I guess, to be a little bit problematic in some ways, you could say, right? Then I kind of more or less got used to the situation, and yeah, then you could say that for a while it was, I don't have that written, I'm more or less improvising on what kind of happened since that point to today. Then since that point in time, like there was some tension with the guy I was with and some other guy, and some the tension kind of like, that tension was kind of there until the end, but there it's like they were kind of like messing with each other, but in a serious way. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't just like friendly banter; it was like unfriendly banter. That was kind of like this underlying tension. So when he got kicked out, things kind of like got closer, a little bit closer together between me and the other people, because I was not I wouldn't say like excluded, but I was like less in, like I was a little bit less let in because of him, because they didn't want him around, so they didn't invite me because I was usually with him and so on. So there were kind of those dynamics. At that time, I didn't mind super a lot, but yeah, that did happen. Then, yeah, so yeah, I guess I'm more or less gotten used to the situation because he was kicked out, so I kind of then I got close. I got like to be a little bit closer to them, and I got more let in, and I was like kind of more. I wasn't left alone, or you could say I was the, the opposite. I was kind of like more let into things at that time. So yeah, that was, I guess, interesting to see or something. Plus, now, at the very moment of right now, we are kind of in this period where we are like doing in pairs, or in my case now alone, shifts. So we see each other less. So that means that we're kind of like more naturally fragmented. So it feels less like I'm being excluded or whatever, and more like we are actually fragmented because of our timetables and our shifts and so on. So yeah, for better or for worse, we are kind of more alone in that way, or in their case, more in pairs. And the times that where we see each other is kind of like more instrumentally, you could say, because I helped them out with some washing machine, or because they let me go in their car to class, or something like that. But I guess I don't mean it instrumentally in a bad way, because I would say it's some kind of like mutual relationship in that sense, you could say, right? And yeah, I guess that in that video, the previous video, I ended saying that unless I felt more included or something, I'd be going on my own way or something. And actually, what happened is that I did get included. So I'm kept in the loop and explicitly invited to go along and so on. So in that sense, that is kind of good. I'm not sure what's going on with the zoom or whatever, or like with the focus. Sorry, I think there's like strange light. And yeah, here I have also noted that I am recording here at Ostpark. Hope that's a little bit more clear, which means that there's a problem because the previous 8 minutes are less clear. But okay. And yeah, I'm at Ostpark again. Here I'm alone, but I'm less complaining because of the previous situation. Today, for example, in the previous video, I was at Ostpark and I had lunch here alone. And today, for example, I had lunch with one classmate, and it was like pretty easy to coordinate and so on. In the previous video, I complained about punctuality, for example, the unpunctuality. So that there were people that were unpunctual, so I didn't want to be forward and suggest activities or whatever. And right now, it's like, I don't know, I don't mind suggesting activities because it's morely one-on-one, right? If I told this guy, he reached out and said, hey, do you have free time or whatever? And I was like, actually, I don't. I'm going to go somewhere, and then I'm going to have lunch alone. I was planning to have lunch alone, but I told him, want to come with? And he said, say, sure. And he got dressed and we went together. So it was like pretty seamless in that sense. And with the other guys who are more unpunctual or whatever, then I get used to it. When we're doing something together, I'm like, okay, so it's going to start a little bit later, and yeah. And plus, if they say, okay, at this time, whatever, I'm like, actually, I arrive there a little bit later as well. I become more unpunctual because of that. And I also ended the previous video talking about withholding energy, as in there is a felt sense of withholding energy, or a withheld energy, or something like this. And I think that has gone away a little bit, because part of what caused this withholding energy at the beginning was kind of this tension between these two guys. This guy who had the problem, who was the accusatory party, but who received the bullying, and the accused part of being a bully. And that was like a big tense energy when those two people were together, we were in class all of the time, versus now where we see each other in a building, and we're actually in separate buildings as well. So it's a very different like type of way. And yeah, I would say that also caused some situation. Oh yeah, and regarding this withholding energy, I would say that now it has gone down a little bit, but also say that in this course, in this process, I have withheld energy a lot as well, because, and actually to this guy who was accused, because he caused a lot of situations where you needed to withhold energy. In my opinion, I needed to withhold energy. For example, he had like some messy relationship with his girlfriend, and we knew, but the girlfriend didn't know, so you have to kind of withhold there if you didn't want to escalate the situation right at that moment, right? When the situation didn't, when it didn't belong, and we didn't belong in that conversation or whatever, right? So in that sense, it was kind of like messy. So yeah, that is kind of like my sum up of what's been going on, and not much else to say, I guess. How brilliant it has evolved. I have become, I guess, more integrated in the smaller group that has resulted after all of these people who left, and these kind of banter parties where they had a lot of banter with each other that was kind of unfriendly and like mean-spirited, that went away because they got kicked out or they left. So now we are just very, like, it's way more fragmented in the day to day, and I'm more included in this fragmentation, like, so I don't feel that alone. I would say I would actually feel like I do have like a small community of like 2, 3, 4 people. It depends. Like two people with who I'm closer with, two people who I'm less close with but live close by, and I can interact in a more or less friendly way or whatever. And then one guy who lives like farther away and that I see less often or whatever. But I don't know, who I can also hang out with and or whatever, and of whom I'm kind of being informed and caught up with his life or whatever, because he's closer to one of these other people. So yeah, that's how it's been, and I'm going to link right over here, over my golden hour face, uh, some the videos from last week, sorry, from last year, in case you haven't watched it yet, which would be interesting because you kind of then don't understand what's going on. But yeah, I'll still leave it in the end card. And yeah, thank you for watching. Bye bye.